Pastel Accounting How-To webinar, or the topic webinar on how to use the general ledger overview, and general ledger reporting. So guys, last week we did do inventory, and this week we are going to be speaking about everything to do with your GL. So your general ledger is the backbone of your company. It is very, very important that you make sure that your general ledger or GL is set up correctly. Because if this is not set up correctly, you can find that you have a lot of problems. So when you start a new company, so you do the, for example, new, you'll start a new company, it would, sorry guys, for some reason, I seem to be in a view only. So guys, very quickly, if you ever, and this is, I'm just going to teach you how to resolve this error. If you see your Pastel, you've got a company open, but the edit, process, change, setup, utility, you can see it's all grayed out. You can only really go to view. You can only really go to file. This means that either your registration has expired, or alternatively, that your registration has become inactive. Now, normally in this situation, what you need to do is you need to go to register your package. This should resolve it. I'm going to say yes, and I'm just going to check exactly what's happening here. So guys, I'm going to use the online registration very quickly. Okay, so basically the business care license is apparently due. Okay, that is why. Yeah, so I may have a slight problem. I'm so sorry, I didn't actually notice that. So guys, I'm not going to be able to go into edit, but I am going to advise how this would work unless, okay guys, in my instance, there is a way that I can resolve this, but it is just, give me a sec. I just want to advise this person that they just need to press F5. Okay, so guys, there is actually a different way to resolve this. In the event that it has expired, you're probably trying to fix this. I'm going to register my Pastel as a demo. Now, I have registered it as a demo previously, so kind of the way that you do this is we're going to actually remove the registration folder, and hopefully that'll work. Okay, it does not want to let me, guys. I may not be able to run this. I may need to take a moment just to see if any of my other pastels are working. I do apologize. I did not notice that. So guys, for this demonstration, the GL has not really changed much from 19 to, or from 18 to 19. It's really absolutely fine. But I'll need to obviously sort out those issues later. Obviously, that is our internal systems serial number. So I'll just need to chat on. Okay, awesome. So guys, continuing. So with your GL, if you go file new, most of the time you have the option to use setup assistant or start new company. Now, most people will use the setup assistant, but when it comes to where you choose your chart of accounts, a lot of the time people don't see that option. So if, for example, I go new co1, I'm going to run through this very, very quickly. I don't want to spend a lot of time here. If you do need to know how to start a new company, guys, we can always do that at another stage. But basically, a lot of the time people here don't always read, and it's very common that that happens, and they're unsure what to do. So they're like, okay, cool, I see a chart of accounts next. Now, guys, just because you see a chart of accounts does not mean it is a correct chart of accounts for you. Luckily, it is very editable, even if you've selected the wrong one. But honestly, check what is closest to what you need. So you can click on something and then just look through the actual chart and go, oh, this is more what I'm looking for. Because you don't really want to sit with this very generic chart of accounts and have to edit it a lot. So your chart is very important, your GL is very important, selecting the correct GL is very important. If you do that, however, and you do select the wrong GL, it's not a problem, but you do need to make sure that before you start processing, you actually have gone into edit general ledger accounts and you have checked that the accounts are named correctly, that they have the correct categories, and that you have all the accounts that you need. So you need to check. You may want to change some of these names. You may not need something called consulting, but you do want like other sales, or you've got a different kind of account that you want to use. If there is no processing, you will be able to change both the actual main account from income statement to balance sheet as well as a financial category. But if in this instance you can see that there's processing, you're going to have a problem. And this is where your GL becomes very messy, because now you've processed and you're like, oh, it wasn't meant to be an income statement, it's meant to be a balance sheet. How do I fix this? Now, guys, if you have something called the General Ledger Manager, which is an add-on module available to partner, it is a very, very cool utility. I don't think that I unfortunately have it here, but there is something called the General Ledger Manager. It is a very, very cool add-on module. And what this add-on module does is it does allow you to change those financial categories, but you do need to obviously pay for that add-on module. It also allows you to renumber your GL. So your renumber code is something that you get with partner free of charge, but the General Ledger Manager is an add-on module that you get. Okay, perfect. Sorry, guys, someone just sent a message. They were having issues logging in or having sound. But guys, basically the General Ledger Manager, very nice add-on module, allows you to manage your GL, but it is only available in partner. If you have an accountant that uses Pastel, they should have that. You can also then ask them to help you fix your GL. That being said, though, you go into Edit General Ledger Accounts and make sure that you've created your GLs. This is also where you can create your sub-accounts. So you may not just want a main sales account. You may wish to have sales accounts per region. Maybe, for example, you have a sales account, and you'll see the first time you do it, it'll tell you you're going to make a sales account. You enter the main account, you say yes, and then you're going to start entering your sub-account numbers. Now, main account numbers are 4 digits, sub-accounts are 3 digits, so you can go from 1 to 999. But you may have, for example, sales JHB and sales Cape Town and sales Durban. So this is where you can create your sales accounts, but you need to know how you want your GL to look. What will happen is the first sub-account you make, the whole balance will move from the main account to that sub-account. If you need to split that sub-account, you'll create the rest of your sub-accounts, and then you'll do a journal to move the value, because maybe the sales account was 20,000, but only 5,000 was for Johannesburg, 6,000 is for Cape Town, and the other 4 is for Durban. You would then need to do journals to fix those, and then obviously the main account will still show you the 20,000 that you have, or the 15, whatever it is. So basically you'll just say yes, and it will make that account for you, and you'll click on save. You'll notice that it'll then go into an edit mode, and you can see here that you can create new accounts. So guys, go through your GL, very, very important. That's where you do it. That's where you check it. Something to note is that yes, with customers, suppliers, and inventory, you can import your master files. Guys, if you already have a general ledger, it doesn't matter if you export that layout, if you change it, you cannot import into a company that already has a general ledger chart of accounts. So importing, it's going to tell you you can't. So unfortunately, this is a very manual process, but it is very worthwhile. Go through it, check that it's correct, check that you're happy, check that your setup is correct. Then guys, obviously there are a lot of things that link up to your GL. Last week we spoke about inventory, and you saw your groups. Those would be your sales and your cost of sales, making those sub accounts. creating them so that on your TB you have better reporting. Your GL fits in with that. It basically fits in with everything. Your entry types, for example, that is very important because your entry types and your GLs go hand in hand. So it's very important that you make sure that your entry types are set up correctly, that you understand your entry types, and that you know how they work. This will also make a big difference in your reporting. So guys, over here we'll see contra and detail. Now you'll notice that the cash book general ledger entry types don't have contra and detail selected. Now this is depending on what you actually want to see. The ticking the contra and detail means that it's going to show you every transaction, much like your cash book details. But that does mean pages and pages and pages of transactions. Not ticking this option means that all that it's going to do is it's going to post one line showing you this is how much the receipts were, this is how much the payments were, done. Now, depending on what you want to get out of it, depends on if you tick the contra and detail or not. It also depends if you force projects. So it's very important to know what that means. Contra and detail means that it'll show every line for the specific cash book or the specific entry type. Unticking it means that if that entry type or if that cash book, that GL account is the contra account, it's just going to show you the total batch. So it'll go, all of the credits were 50,000, but it's not going to tell you what they were made up with. Now, it's not a big train smash for your cash books. And the reason for that is because if you go to view general ledger and you go to transactions, you do have a cash book details report, which then does show you specifically line for line what those details were. So you don't necessarily have to have contra and details selected. I kind of don't do it, and the reason I don't is, especially if you have bank recon out of balance, I find it very difficult to have to go through the detailed ledger and look for out of period processing for just a couple of transactions. However, if you don't have contra and detail selected, it's quite easy to pick up that issue because it'll be specifically for that batch and it'll go, okay, there it is. And you can be like, okay, I see it. However, there are other ways to also pick up out of period processing, which is why I'm going to show you all of the reports, guys. It's very important to know what reports do what and when you use them. Your cash book details, you often would use to check the actual periods things were processed in and look for out of period processing. So this is a very easy way to find that. If you have your bank recon being out of balance, and you suspect that it might be out of period processing, you select the period that is out of balance because you need to find which period it is first. Do not assume that because last month balanced, this month is the problem. You have to go and double check every period to find the last period in balance. The very next period after the imbalance period will be your period that's out of balance. Just a tip about bank recon. So guys, a lot of the time people phone in, they go, June's out of balance. I've got a bank recon, but I've checked and nothing's wrong. And when we get the data, we'll check and we'll actually find, well, actually March is out of balance, or last year September's out of balance, which means everything from September is out of balance. And the way you do that is you just check your recon and you keep putting your closing bank balance in and you print to screen and you make sure it says in balance. If it keeps telling you that there's a difference, you need to find the period going backwards. So you'd do June, you'd go May, you'd go April, you'd go March. And you want to find the period that says in balance. The very next period. So if March, for example, said in balance, or February said in balance, March, which says out of balance, is where you have your problem. So just a tip there. But basically then you'd select March. And guys, over here, what you would do is you would then, for example, go April, and you would go all the way, say, to the end of your financial year. And you would do it this way, and you would actually go, okay. And what you wanted to do is you wanted to actually come up and give you an issue. So sorry guys, I might have done that wrong. No. So what it should do here is it should actually then pull through a transaction to say to you, hey, this is the transaction. So here you're seeing there no actual transactions. It's just telling you this is what transpired in this time. But if it was out of period, so March's period, it should then at the very least give you out of period processing. Another report you can view for that is you go to view, general ledger, transactions, and entry type details. Now, I prefer the entry type details report personally for this specific, for looking for this. Because I can specify then I just want to check payments or I just want to check receipts. But you obviously do need to know which cash book it is and what the entry type is. Again, you do that by going to your cash book, checking if it's cash book 1, 2, 3, what the actual GL is. You then go to set up entry types and you'll check on the setup entry types. So for example, guys, you'll look here, you'll check, okay, it's cash book 18400. You then need to close this. You will need sole access mode for this. Set up entry types. And you'll check, okay, CB1 payments, CB1 receipt. Okay, got it. Because sometimes when you add cash books, it's going to add it at the bottom here. So you could be working with, you know, entry type 23 or something, and you don't want to select a whole range because then it's not going to work. The entry type reports, irrespective of if it's for a bank recon or something else, you're using it to find something very specific. And you need to know what entry type you're working with. If you know what entry type you're working with, this is a very powerful tool. So if you go, hang on, my sales report, when I viewed that, there was a discrepancy between my detailed ledger and my actual sales report on my customers. I want to view just my sales. I want to see those sales. I want to check this period. I want to make sure there's no out of period processing. So again, guys, you go and you select the correct period, but all of the dates outside of that period. Now you can obviously do each period one by one. So you can do April, then you can do May, June. But honestly, the quickest way to do it is if it's not in March, it's out of period processing, irrespective of what the period is. So you make sure that it's not March, and then you're going to go, okay. In this way, you can then have a look, because out of period processing can happen when you do anything. It can happen in a cash book. It can happen when you process customers, suppliers, journals. And if you know what entry type you're using, you can use this to very quickly find that. It'll come up with just one line. You can go, there it is, and it will give you all the details that you need. So it'll give you your date, your account, the name, the reference, the description, the tax type, the tax, and the amount, which is everything you need, because you will need to process a reversal. So you're going to use the same period, the same date. The only thing that's going to change actually is the description and the amount. Everything will be identical. The description you're going to put as reversal, same reference, but you're going to say reversal, and the amount you're going to put a negative value. So if you did a journal and it was a debit, you're going to put a debit but with a negative value. It will change it to a credit, but that's basically what you're going to be doing. So guys, this is my go-to report, the entry type details, view general ledger, transactions, entry type details for finding out of period processing. My detailed ledger is obviously my overall. This is what I want to check. You can also use this to find out of period processing, but I find the entry types a lot easier. To find out of period processing, this would be where you do it 1 month at a time and you just say each period separate, or you do it for a whole year. And you're then going to have to look for, okay, it's this period, this is the date range, I'm looking for something out of this date range. So it's all March, there April is, or there June is. You can use it. As I said, I just find entry type details or the entry type details easier. This is basically me just checking, okay, let me check my info, let me check, I'm doing my checks and balances, I'm seeing my age analysis, and I use my detailed ledger to double check that my aging is correct. Okay, yes, I see that I did an invoice, there the payment is. Invoice payments, great. And I check that information. That's what I generally use the detailed ledger for. I'll do my checks and balances against it. I use my entry type to find out of period processing. And then guys, my ledger by entry type. This is if I need to check, hang on, something's gone wrong. So I might see the detailed ledger, and I've had this before with a client where they were actually processing their receipts to their sales account. Now, obviously that inflated their GP percentage, and that meant that SARS would have been like, hey, pay up, buddy. Your GP is pretty high. And I had to explain that to them, so they weren't very familiar with bookkeeping and how it worked. But I saw one entry, and of course, when you see that, if you do a ledger by entry type, you can now go, okay, I want to see the sales account, for example, but I want to check my sales account, which I know is my 1,000, with my sub accounts, but I want to check my, for example, payments and receipts against this. And you can do one by one, and you can then go, okay, what it did is it brought up a whole list for me, and I could say to them, hey, you need to reverse these as a matter of urgency. This isn't meant to go to your sales account. Like, that's totally the wrong place to send this. And they could speak to their accountants and resolve that. So guys, if you see something weird like that, there's suddenly a funny entry type in a GL account that you're like, whoa, that doesn't look like that should be there. This is the report to run to make sure, is it a once-off mistake, or is this actually quite a big problem? Because you want to make sure that your finances are correct. So that's what those specific reports are in fact used for. Your detailed ledger, your checks and balances. Your ledger by entry type is when you notice that there is a strange entry type in an account. It's your cost of sales account, but it's showing sales, or it's showing not necessarily sales, because that is actually fine, but it's showing inventory journal, or it's showing depreciation, something that you're like, that shouldn't be there. It's showing receipts, it's showing payments. Entry types that shouldn't be there. Sorry guys, I'm not an accountant, so if some of those entry types should have been there, I apologize. But entry types that being bookkeepers, being business partners, being accountants, that you're like, that should never be there. Like a customer journal showing purchases. You may be like, hang on, why is my customer controller account showing purchases? That's the wrong entry type. Or it's showing the manufacturing entry type. That's the wrong entry type. That shouldn't be on my customer detailed ledger. What's happening? Guys, that's what you use that for. Ledger by entry type. See if it's a one-off, see how it happened, and see if there's actually a deeper problem. It can also be a very quick way to find something specific, but generally that's what I've used it for. Entry type details. Obviously, again, guys, your entry type details is what entry types went to which account. So maybe you need to first check, do I have weird entry types in this account? You can then go, I want to see all the accounts where my sales were affected. You can go, okay, and it is going to run and tell you, okay, the entry types where the sales entry type was used is here. You can again see, okay, that's really weird. That shouldn't be in this account. So the reports can do multiple things, but it is entirely up to you. As I said, I mostly use the entry types to find out of period processing. Your Cashbook Details, guys, is exactly that. It's your Cashbook Details report. It should show every single transaction that you have processed in your Cashbook. So not direct journal entries. So guys, if you do a journal and you use a Cashbook account, that is a direct journal entry. It will not show in the Cashbook Details, nor will it show in your bank recon. Only if you go to process Cashbook will the transaction show here. So if you view your Cashbook Details and that transaction is not showing, there's a good chance that, guys, sorry, someone just saying that the sound has disappeared for 5 minutes and that the mouse is missing. Does anyone else have these issues? Please let me know if you can hear me. Guys, please let me know if anyone else can hear me. Okay, thank you so much. Does seem like it's working. Thank you for just letting me know that everything disappeared. Again, guys, this is being recorded. So good to know it wasn't on my side. Okay, guys, that being said, so your cash book, if you can't find it, there is a good chance that you've done direct processing. And then again, that could be why your bank recon is out of balance. Then you have your transaction audit trail. Now, guys, your transaction audit trail merely shows the transactions that you have. They merely show the transactions that you have processed. And they will give you an ID. And if, for example, you are checking if maybe you had a one-sided transaction, you can absolutely use this. But once you find the transaction, it will give you that ID. And here is where you can then use that ID to double check. Okay, I want to use my transaction ID or batch ID. You can enter that and you can make sure, do you see both the transactions or is this very much a one-sided transaction? So this is where you can check that. Then, guys, to get into the other reports. So I did the transactions first, but obviously you have your financial reports. So this is where you're going to view your trial balance, your income statement, your balance sheet, and your cash movement. So, guys, with your balance sheet, there are a couple of settings that I just want to bring to your attention because often we'll get a lot of calls, especially just after year end, where we'll actually have people turn around and say to us, hey, listen here, we have a bit of a problem and my opening balance is, sorry guys, my apologies, I thought that I turned off my phone. So they'll say that they can't see their opening balances. Now, guys, that often happens with the TB, and that's because there's a tiny little tick mark here that says include opening balances. And a lot of the time during the year when you're busy running this report, you don't want to see your opening balances. You just want to see March and April. You're doing your checks and balances, and it's very common, most people miss this tick. So please, if you want to see your opening balances, so it's going to bring through your balance sheet, your profit and loss from the previous year, you're going to tick this option. With that being said, guys, when you run this, a lot of times people run this, they'll run their retained income for March, and then again, we'll have a lot of calls going, my opening balance for March and my closing balance for Feb are totally different. Guys, that's totally normal. This is normal. What you'll find is that if you rerun this, and you run it for Feb, the difference in your profit and loss is sorry, I don't think that I ticked opening balances. I did not. But the difference that you'll see, sorry guys, if you're not running, sorry, March, Feb. Okay, if you're not running this year, it apparently doesn't let you tick that. But the difference that you're going to see is actually the difference in your profit and loss. So if you look at your retained income, and I may not have had anything there because it should show, but it will show you the difference between your profit and loss. So it's totally normal, and that is something that happens at year end. So please bear that in mind. Okay, so guys, those are just two things with this that often causes a lot of like a little bit of panic, where it's like my opening balances didn't write, or my profit and loss suddenly has this huge difference, or sorry, my retained income. Guys, as long as the difference is your profit and loss from the previous year, so if you look at your profit and loss for the last year and you notice that's the difference between your opening and closing retained income account, totally normal. Tick the option to include opening balances. Then you'll be able to see those. So it's not that they didn't write, it's just reporting filters. Then guys, with your income statement, the option to include opening balances is not selected. So it's another call that we'll get where people are like, I've checked my trial balance and it's showing these figures, but my income statement is showing something totally different. They do not include the opening balances. Please bear that in mind. So it may show a difference, especially if you're just going to view it for a specific month. It's not going to bring opening balances in. It's going to go, this is your incomes for this, your income or your profit and loss for this specific month. So it does not include that. That is the difference. And then guys, the same is true for your balance sheet. So they don't include your opening balances with your balance sheet. If you are finding that you don't like the layout, it's not looking correct, it seems a bit weird, maybe the information isn't pulling 100% correctly, we have had that. One of the things that you can do is you can go rerun and tick the option to print an alternative layout. So guys, if you do that, sometimes you find that the alternative layout shows better. I think that there is a defect logged about it. I'm not sure if they fixed it yet. Apologies for that. But if you are seeing that something isn't pulling through or it's not looking correct, please try the alternative layout. By all means, send us an email, support@sage.com. Let us know, hey, this is my layout. This is where my problem is. If I print the alternative layout, this is what it's doing. But try the alternative layout, guys, because obviously you need to print your reports. And then, guys, you've got your cash movement, which shows exactly that. It's your cash movement. You can include sub-accounts, you can show totals only, and you can select the period and how many months you want to view that for. And it will show you the movements accordingly so that you can do your cash flow forecasts. Then guys, you've got your checks. I don't think a lot of people use those anymore. It's basically just going to show you what checks were processed in the cash book. I'll be very surprised if anyone actually still uses that. Your account balances. So guys, this is just going to give you your account balances for the periods that you've selected. So it's your movement. You're basically going to go, okay, and you're going to have a look and go, okay, this is my sales account. This is my movement this year, last year, my budgets. Okay, I'm happy. So it's exactly that. It's just showing you basically the movement per period for your accounts. And then guys, we've got our tax. Now, understanding the tax and the tax reports are very, very important. So we do need to know how this works. You need to make sure it's set up correctly. Guys, if you're unsure how to set up your tax, you need to go to Setup Tax. 1, check your general settings. This is very important. Make sure that your general settings are correct. So check your parameters, make sure that you've got the correct tax system set up. Check your options. If you're unsure if these are correct, please ask your accountant or auditor. And then you've got your percentages. So guys, you can come here and you can create more tax types. That is totally okay. It's totally fine. You can set those up accordingly. Multiple tax, your box name and your box layout. Now guys, we do not help with these two. You do need a tax practitioner to actually assist you with this. There's a little bit of info on the KB, but not being tax practitioners And with the fact that you can be audited by SARS if this is incorrect, it's not something that we do because, one, we are not accountants, we are not tax practitioners, we have not had to study this, we merely support the system. This is very specific to your company. You can completely customize this for your company only. And guys, you need to make sure that this is set up correctly. We are not trying to be difficult when we go, hi, we can't really help you. Here's an idea or a document that may help, but please speak to a tax practitioner. We don't want to be responsible for you being audited by SARS because it's not something that we work with. But it is here for you to use. The box layout can obviously be very customized to your company. The tax layout is more a generic kind of report. So that's where you set up your general settings. And then again, guys, you set up your tax manager. So SARS will give you a reporting frequency. SARS will tell you, hey, you in category A with ending at the month every odd month. So it's December, Jan, Feb, March, April, May. Or you're in category B, which the majority of companies are that I've seen, which is January, Feb, March, April, May, June, and that's just how it works. You may be in category C, D, E, so SARS themselves will tell you what category you are in. You will then, for example, select your category, and this will give you your tax reporting. So Pastel uses 2 date ranges. You have your financials, your financial date ranges, your financial periods, and then your tax periods. Guys, please don't get them confused. They do differ. So at times, especially if you are having issues with tax, we're going to ask you what your tax periods are. They are not the same as your financial periods, and they work very differently. So once you've set up your tax, you then again are going to go to View General Ledger Tax, and you're going to go into your reports. Sorry guys, I see a question mark. I'm just double checking. Okay, so guys have been asked, is it always safe to use the tax report, not the tax box report? Yeah, guys, it's absolutely fine. It's not a problem. You can absolutely use the tax report. The tax system that we use was created with SARS. So it is absolutely fine. It is absolutely okay to use the tax report. It's just there are some clients who want their report to be more customized. There are specific ways that they want their tax to show. So you can absolutely use the tax type report, and you can then fill in your VAT 201. The tax box report you can actually have set up so that it prints on a tax 201 report, and you can just submit it to SARS. So it's not that the tax box is necessarily better, it's just more customizable. It just does have to be set up correctly. So if you don't have a tax person who can come set it up, or you are quite happy with the tax box report and it's working, the tax type report, and it's working perfectly for you, then yeah, guys, absolutely, there's no issue with totally using it. It's absolutely 100% safe. Both the reports show accurate information, just the tax box you can customize to show the way that your company wants to. Hopefully that helps or explains that. So no, I wasn't trying to say that the tax box is better than the tax type. The tax type is just the default report that we use. It's not customizable. That is the difference. Now, guys, I don't know if any of you, I'm pretty sure most of you already have your tax set up. This shouldn't be new to you, but if you don't, and you set it up for the first time, it's going to ask you, okay, you need to close your previous period. So with the tax manager, we close off tax periods. And the reason we do that is that previously, in previous versions of Pastel, so I think before 12, if you had forgotten to process the transaction in the actual tax period, a lot of people were doing the out of period processing, which was completely mucking up reports, or they would do the transaction properly, but they'd have to make a mental note to record it in the next financial reporting. So they had already submitted to SARS for, say, March and April, and they had forgotten a supplier batch to do in April. Now, that input tax still needs to be accounted for. And either what they would do is they would use March's period with April's date, so out of period processing, which messed up certain reporting, or they would have to do it correctly, but remember that that batch wasn't catered for when they submitted to SARS for the March-April period. So they would have to then submit it in the May-June. And we realized that that wasn't really working very well. It was causing a lot of issues. So we created Tax Manager, and what that does is that allows you to close off tax periods. So I'm going to close this off till, let's say, let's put it in the current financial year. So, and what this will do is this will just close all your tax periods up until when you want to report. Now, to know which reporting period you're in, you will see this date. So this will tell me I'm in February, March. I know that this is 2017. Sorry, guys, it's because it's version 18. But this will tell me that I'm reporting for February, March. So if this is also, I'm like, oh, actually, I want to be in April, May, I'll then go close the current tax period next, and it's going to ask me to give a reason. So I can go submit it to SARS or awaiting SARS, whatever it is, but it means that I've looked through my reports and I am happy to submit to SARS, and they're going to tell me, hey, you need to make a payment, you owe us money, or we need to give you a refund, because basically you'll be able to see that. Now, guys, with the view reports are going to be for this specific period, unless you choose to view closed reports. So if you view current tax reports, you have the option of viewing the tax type report, the tax box report, or the tax manager reconcile report. Now, guys, a lot of people don't know about this report. It's a very important report, especially if you're having issues with your tax manager. So, guys, I don't know if I have any transactions. It was in my 19. I did not set up my 18 for this. I'm so sorry, but let's hope. So we're going to say OK. And, guys, here you'll see it's grayed out. So sometimes you get calls, hey, I can't select my tax period. I used to be able to. Why is this happening? You're viewing the currently open tax period. If you select to view the currently open tax period, you cannot change the dates. It's going to allow you to only view April and May. In my case, February, March. That's what it's going to let me view. I can't view anything else. Guys, then here you can see that you can only choose 01 and 021. So tax type 00 is not included. So if transactions are missing, that is something that you need to go and look for. You can then choose to show details or not, print descriptions, and then offset credits against sales and purchases. So guys, this is if you've done credit notes or return and debits. If you don't select this, the way that Pastel works is that when you process a transaction and the tax symbol is a credit, so you process a customer account or let's say you process a credit note, the VAT portion of that credit note is going to be a debit. Anything that is a debit is seen as input VAT, irrespective of the accounts used. If the VAT portion is a debit, it is input. If the VAT portion is a credit, it is output. So what you'll find is if you don't tick this option, your credit notes are going to show under inputs and your return and debits are going to show under output. So if you tick this option, what it does is it then swaps them around and it puts your credit notes under output so that it actually is cancelling out the VAT on those invoices, and it puts your return and debits in input, so again it's cancelling out the transactions for those supplier invoices. So that's what this does. And then we go OK, and hopefully it will generate your report. As I said, unfortunately I don't think that I have transactions, so I'm sorry about that, guys, but it'll bring up your report. Now, If you're seeing that you're not having transactions, so there are transactions missing, you're not seeing them, but you are getting some transactions. So it's not, you know, it's maybe a transaction here or there, or maybe it's a batch that is missing, but you're seeing most of your stuff. Guys, go and view the Tax Manager Reconciliation Report. The reason for this is that basically this report you can view for basically the whole year, which I'd strongly advise. And then, guys, you can view it for specific entry types. So in this situation, if you know, hang on, it's actually, for example, yeah, it's my customer invoices and my customer credit notes, or it's just a customer invoice batch, so it's just my sales, or it's for some reason just my Cashbook One receipts. You can do it that way, or if you're unsure, you just like transactions seem to be missing, select everything. You select the first one at start, the last one at end. Guys, you then want to make sure that your tax type start is 00. Often, if it's not an issue with Tax Manager having corrupted, sometimes that happens. It could be that you were processing and you forgot to change the tax type. It happens. In this case, again, you can select all, or just to check tax type 00, and you can go OK. What's going to happen is it's going to generate a report. And guys, I only chose tax type 0, and you can see how many transactions actually should have come through that are totally missing because they were processed with tax type 0. So those will not show on your report, and you can check that very quickly and go, oh my word, I made a mistake. And now you're going to have to reverse these transactions, but it'll give you an idea. These are the transactions. This is what's happened. This is what I need to reverse. And they'll also tell you which period they were in, the inclusive, the exclusive, and the accounts and the reference. So again, you can check, see the date, see the period, and you can know what you need to do to correct this. So guys, this doesn't show as 0 rated because it's tax type 0. So there was no tax, but there may have needed to be. And you may be owed a refund or you need to pay SARS, but this is a very important report to check that. If a transaction is not showing, it will hopefully also tell you which tax period. So maybe you did do out of period processing where you selected, you know, the incorrect date here, but it's in tax period 5, for example. That way you'll be able to see why those transactions aren't showing. So this is where you come and you can literally check off things. You can also use this against your detailed ledger. So generally you would use this report with your detailed ledger to see if there are issues. Guys, if your report is blank or it's just showing the date, this report won't help you. That is a different issue. If your report isn't showing you anything, you can come and have a look, check that there are tax transactions actually. But if it's just showing the date, that is a problem with a file called your VS View. And on the KB, you need to just look at tax report showing incorrectly or runtime error 372. I don't expect you to remember the runtime error, but if you do actually go tax type report not showing information or tax type report showing incorrect, you should see that document come up. It'll tell you how to fix that. But guys, this is a very powerful report to try to see if something's wrong. Another way that you can check if something is wrong is you can turn off Tax Manager. Now guys, you can do that by going to Help, About, and holding Control-Alt. Now guys, it will only turn it off for the session that you have Pastel open for. So the moment I close Pastel, it will turn my Tax Manager back on. So if I go OK, this will then print the reports in the old way. Now the old reporting system writes to different DAT files than Tax Manager does. So this is a check that you can do just to go, hang on, is there a problem with Tax Manager or is it a problem with my tax? And then you can see, guys, there is no what report period. You then run the old way, tax type report. And you can select your period and how many months. So I want to run for March, but it's March and April, for example. Select my options. And I say, okay, and hopefully it will generate a report. Now, guys, obviously there's no info here. I can be like, okay, it's not tax manager, but if you are seeing information in the old report, but not in the new report, it's generally an issue with tax manager. And in that instance, a lot of people would go and reset their tax manager. Now, guys, that is a little bit dangerous, and I'm going to explain why. So generally, when we talked about tax manager, I actually advised you that you close periods. Now, the reason for that was to make sure that in the event that you actually processed, so let's take the same thing. We've got a batch of supplier invoices that were meant to be processed in Jan, and I didn't do them, and I now need to do them. I can still process them, and it will automatically report in my open period. So I don't have to do out of period processing or anything. I can use my January period, my January date, and it will put them in my February, March period for this example, because that's an open period. So it will take those transactions and put them in the open period. If, however, you have an issue with Tax Manager and you reset your settings or you reopen your tax periods, guys, it will take any transactions that are meant to be in that period. So if I process my January and they go into my February, March tax period, I submit to SARS. I now go and open January, my December, January period. It will move those transactions from February, March and put them in December, January, because that's where they belong. If SARS now queries anything and I've got to re-pull that report, it's going to pull incorrectly. So you need to be aware of that. Yes, if you pull it for the whole year, the figures should be the same because it's just moving them from one period to the next. But it can make SARS query things if you do that, because they're going to go, hang on, but we're querying May and now you're giving us different things. And you're going to have to go and reconcile and figure out what happened. So it's not advisable to willy-nilly open your periods or to reset your tax manager settings unless you absolutely have to. So please bear that in mind. A lot of people don't understand opening and closing the tax periods. They're like, oh, what's the big deal? Guys, that is a big deal, because if SARS queries something and your report has changed, you can't get the report back the way it was. You're then going to have to explain to them, oh, this is what happened and I actually did that and that was part of that, but now it's part of this. As you can see, this has also changed. And it can lead to, you know, none of us like dealing with SARS, trust me. I had to deal with them recently. No one likes SARS. If anyone is on here from SARS, I apologize, but we don't. So guys, just bear that in mind. Then what else do we need to check? Guys, then you've got your listings. So these are just, it's going to list your accounts. It's going to list your budgets. If you use Report Writer, it's going to give you your Report Writer categories and financial categories. Guys, I know some of you love Report Writer, great. Honestly, if I were you, I'd just use Sage Intelligence. I think that it's far more user-friendly and it's a lot easier. So your Report Writer is what we used to use before Sage Intelligence. And basically, guys, it's just you generating those financial reports. So you can print one or more reports, you can edit existing reports, you can create new reports. The thing is that most of us, this is very difficult to support because the information is no longer there. And I'm just being honest with you. A lot of us struggle with Report Writer. We do have some support, but generally we don't help you to create new reports from scratch. You need to know how this works. And guys, rather use Sage Intelligence. And even on Sage Intelligence, we cannot tell you how to write reports. If you don't know how to create containers, how to write the reports, you need to get a report writer to assist you. It's possible those same report writers can create custom reports here, but these are mostly a lot of financial reports and some extra reporting that you can use. Sage Intelligence has very similar reports, and in all honesty, because it's in Excel, it's just, in my opinion, far more user-friendly. I prefer how the reports are written, and I prefer what you can do with the reports. but Report Writer is here if you want to use it. It is where you would also go to use Report Writer. Then guys, with your listings, it's exactly that. It is your listing. So what are my financial categories? What are my Report Writer categories? Want to see your budgets, want to see your accounts? This is where you would run it and you would have an idea. The reason I've come in here with accounts is this is very important if you are running a report and it tells you that you have one or more unallocated accounts. Guys, the best way to do this is you run it 0001, for example, to 99999, and then just select the unallocated option. And you can say, okay. This will very quickly tell you, okay, here are the accounts that haven't been allocated, and you can then go and allocate them, because obviously your TB is not going to write correctly if you have that option. Guys, I see that there is a hand. Please ask your question. Just being attacked by a bee. But guys, this is the report that you can use for this. Obviously, this report has a lot more uses than just that. You can use it to check your accounts and to check what you've called them and. So you can check which accounts are balance forward, which accounts are income, obviously. But it is a quick way for you to check that, either by doing unallocated balance sheet or unallocated income statements. And you can then come and have a look and see. You can also do all and then see if there's any unallocated. Again, just a shortcut to select unallocated. Okay, guys, again, I'm being told that there are sound issues. Can you all hear me? Is the sound okay? Have I been lost? Guys, basically for the session, that is it. That is your GL. Those are the reports. That's how they use. That's how they work. If anyone has any questions, please send them through now so that we can answer. But yeah, that's your GL. Obviously, it is very important. It's important to make sure that it's set up correctly. But yeah, hopefully that helps you know which reports to run when, how some of those reports can work. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. The session was recorded. To those of you who had sound issues, I'm so sorry. The recording will be sent to you. You're welcome to rewatch that recording. To those of you that don't have questions, guys, you're welcome to log out. In 2 weeks' time, we're doing customers, and we're talking about customer reporting and how that all works, and how your customers report and setting up your customers. So please join us for that. Otherwise, I hope that you have a fantastic day further. And guys, if you don't have any questions, you're welcome to log out. Thank you. Okay, so guys, I've got a question with regards, is there a quick way to delete old GL accounts? So honestly, using the GL manager is probably going to be your quickest way to do that. If you don't have the GL manager, then no, there is no quick way. It's literally one by one by one. But the GL manager makes it very quick to do most of those. You can consolidate accounts, you can delete accounts, you can change account names, and you can renumber the accounts, you can get rid of sub-accounts. So guys, without the GL manager, which is an add-on module for partner, if you create sub-accounts, you can't uncreate them. With GL manager, you can. So you can take away your sub-accounts and create a main account again. You can renumber those codes. So the only quick way to delete all GL accounts is to use the GL manager. Otherwise, it's one by one. And guys, honestly, if you are going to pay for one add-on module and you have partner, I do understand some of you partner's not worth it to you, but my advice is get GL Manager. It is an amazing utility to have. Obviously, it would work better for accountants who have to do this a lot. But I would use the GL Manager. The only other thing that you can do, which may be quicker than trying to fix a really badly set up GL, is to create a new company, set up your GL properly, and take on balances, and use the old GL for historical purposes. Okay, guys, are there any other questions coming through? Regrettably, I don't know the cost offhand, I'm afraid. I'm not a salesperson. Never have been, I'm afraid, so don't know the cost, but you are welcome to email or call sales, and I'm sure that they'll be able to get that information to you. Okay, guys, I'm just checking if I've missed anything. Not to my knowledge. Okay, so guys, like always, if you have questions about the webinar, now I don't mean support questions, but like, hey Joe, I need a certificate, or hi Joe, I need the recording. Hi Joe, can you send me a list of webinars, or I need a recording from like 5 weeks back, whatever it is, you're welcome to email me, joanne.barnard@sage.com. If you have a support related query like, how do I delete my GL, or I have a tax issue, please don't email me, guys. I'm not very good at getting to my email timeously. So I do need you to email support. Over and above the time issue, there is the fact that you need to have it recorded within our system. We need to make sure we're providing the best possible support to you. So if it's a support query, please email supportsa@sage.com. If you do email me and it is a support query, please note that I will send it through to support for you. So it's not that I don't want to chat to you guys and stuff. It's just we need to make sure that you get the quickest, fastest support possible, and that all interactions are logged for your protection as well as the protection of Sage. Okay, so guys, I've got 2 questions. One is there a way of running the income statement report for 6 months, showing each month separately, not a consolidated report for 6 months? They should be using Sage Intelligence. If there's not, I would advise going to the Sage Intelligence website and seeing if you can't download one of those reports. There often are reports, free reports on Sage Intelligence. So I would definitely come here, and you're going to go to your resources. And in your resources, I think it was resources, additional reports. Sorry, it was highlighted in green. In your additional reports, you can then come here, go Sage 50cloud Pastel, and then they will show you a number of reports that have been created. And that should be here. I'm not sure if my version 18 is set up. I'm really sorry if it's not. Yeah, I wasn't sure that it would be. Okay, so my intelligence isn't set up, so I can't show you the reports, but if you install your intelligence, I'm pretty sure that there should be a Sage Intelligence report that can run like that. And if not, then you can go and check if there's a free one. If there's not a free one, you can request one to be written for you. Your other option is to run your report writer and to select that option. Again, I'm not sure if it shows per month. I would think that it does. So print one or more reports, and you can see 1 to 6. and 7 to 12, and you can have a detailed or whatever it is. And I'm pretty sure that you can then specify and it should do it. Again, I'm not 100% sure. Sorry guys, I've now broken my V18, but that's where you can run that, but I'm almost 100% sure that Sage Intelligence does have that. Then guys, I just need to open my partner again because I've been asked with regards to out of period processing. They just want to see how that actually looks and what can you do to avoid that. So there are things you can do to avoid out of period processing. But what normally happens as soon as I'm in my company is you should get a message. And guys, a lot of the time, if you don't, it's normally with importing, but also if you're very busy, a lot of the time we tend to tab. I myself, while processing manually, have caused out of period processing just when testing stuff, not for an actual client, but it does happen. So normally what happens is in this instance, you would say select a period, but you would come here and you would select a date. And what should happen is this should come up. Now, guys, if we're just entering and tabbing, it's very easy to miss, but this should warn you. If, however, you are using an import layout, so you're importing your cash books or your journals, guys, please make sure column 1 is correct. A lot of times people create their layouts and they'll import the first time totally fine, it'll be great, and then they carry on using that same layout. So they don't create a new layout every month. They'll just, oh yeah, I need to go change this, and they only change the date column. You've got to change column A as well. If you don't, you're going to have out of period processing, but it doesn't warn you. So bear that in mind. That can be why it's happened. If, however, you want to prevent this, you can do this by going to set up entry types. Make sure you have sole access mode. And guys, here you can change your entry types to date sets period. So if, for example, I'm not going to change all of them, but in this case, you would choose to do that. And you say, okay, if I go back to my cash book now, and I try to process out of period, it physically will not let me because I cannot change my period. So whatever date I enter here, you'll see that it'll automatically correct it. So this would prevent out of period processing. But again, guys, with the imports, please be very careful with those. So this is how you can stop out of period processing if you wish. Guys, I just want to check the questions. Okay, guys, then I don't see any other questions. So I'm going to leave it there for today. If you do have any other questions, as I said, you're welcome to either email support if it is a specific question. Look, if it is something like, hey, you mentioned this in the webinar, I don't understand, that is a bit different, and I can see what I can do to obviously facilitate that. But as I said, guys, if you're having like tax issues or that, I would prefer that you please send that through to support. Otherwise, I hope that you all have a wonderful day further. I am going to end the session, guys. The recording will be sent through to you within the next 24 to 48 hours. If you do not receive that recording in 24 to 48 hours, please email and let me know. The system that I use is meant to send the certificates and the recording automatically. I don't know if it hasn't done that. Oh, guys, over and above that, just very, very quickly, I will also be sending an email to everyone who attended, and I am just going to ask you to rate the session. So did you find it informative? Was there something that I could do better? How would you rate me as a presenter? That type of thing. We just need that kind of feedback so that obviously I can improve as a presenter and to make sure that you are getting the most out of these sessions. So if you wouldn't mind filling that in when you get that my email, that would be really, really great, and I'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, guys, again, have a fantastic day further and a wonderful week. Let's hope it gets a bit warmer and that Eskom stops load shedding us sometime soon. But guys, really have a wonderful week further, and hopefully I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks so much. Ciao, ciao for now.